Battlefield 2018. With Battlefield 1 flying through its DLC cycle and the announcement that DICE will be releasing another Battlefield game in 2018, speculation on what we can expect to see has started to begin. For those wondering whether speculation on this topic is a bit early, think of this. Battlefield 1 was teased in the spring of 2016, speculation on what we could expect to see went on all throughout 2015, so with that in mind, it's a surprise we haven't seen more speculation on the topic sooner. So what do we know so far? Well, not that much, apart from the fact that DICE confirmed they will be making another game and that it will be teased in early 2018 from what we can understand. This ties in with the time taken to release previous Battlefield games and with the 2-year cycle that EA have with Star Wars Battlefront. The first of those two games was released in November 2015, and of course we've just seen the beta from the new game and a confirmed release date of November 17th, 2017. I can therefore be pretty confident in saying Battlefield 2018, or whatever it happens to be called, will be released in October 2018 or thereabouts. We would then expect to see a 2-year cycle of the game up until 2020, where the DLC ended and another game was hyped up. This video is going to take a look at what I think Battlefield 2018 will be, and what I hope DICE will do in order to take a step forward from Battlefield 1. I'll focus on the setting, as I feel once that has been discussed and argued, the rest of the game falls into place, with more specific parts far easier to look at. Speculating on what weapons will be included, and whether or not I'll be able to fly around in an attack helicopter again, is not really worth considering at this point, so let's focus on the time period of the game, the possible names, and maybe the locations. It's an exciting prospect, as there are so many options that DICE could go with. Will DICE continue the game chronologically and go for a World War II setting? I know DICE will want to make a World War II game at some point, but after the recent Call of Duty game, I feel as if they will try and wait a few years longer before going into that genre. Maybe they could go head to head with Call of Duty and try to get a leg up on them, however I feel consumers need fresh ideas and it would be very unlikely for players to buy both the Call of Duty World War II game and then get a Battlefield World War II game as well. I could be wrong, however I do feel like a fresh genre would be more profitable. With that in mind, how about Battlefield Vietnam? Now this is something I'd love to see, as I feel that era could make for some breathtaking combat and fantastic fun. DICE have done a Vietnam game in the past and it could really revive parts of the community that I feel have been fairly dormant throughout Battlefield 1's life. The Frostbite engine would produce some spectacular maps, with the dense jungle and weather being the standout opportunities for me. We all know that the Frostbite engine can create almost lifelike environments that capture the essence of war in that time period, and for me a Vietnam genre could create something spectacular. There were all sorts of military vehicles too, which would make players like me very happy, whilst the weapons from that era were also interesting. Imagine being able to customise the Galil, M40 or M1A1. Customization like we saw in Battlefield 4 could make a return, and I feel as if the setting would complement this quite well in contrast to Battlefield 1, where customization would really take away from the realism and locations. How about Battlefield 5? Could DICE take off from where they left Battlefield 3 and 4 and produce a modern military shooter with the wide-scale, all-out war that so many of us loved? We'd probably have similar factions with the US, China and Russia, all battling it out over modern day environments using the best weaponry on a massive scale. DICE have learnt a lot since the Battlefield 4 days, and this could prove to be a very lucrative genre considering the amount of players and support both Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 still have. I for one would be getting very excited if they announced this time period in setting, as for me, a modern day shooter is far more interesting than one from the past. I was having a read up on some of the Battlefield forums and came across a point that pretty much summed up some of my thoughts on Battlefield 1. The post is by Sonaran and he hits the nail on the head when he says he feels bored with the game. I'm not personally certain why I'm bored with Battlefield 1, but the hours I've put in are all the proof you need. On Battlefield 4 I have 2,000 hours playtime. On Battlefield 1 I have just over 300. I know I'm not finished with the game and there's still many hours that I'm going to put into it, but the thing is, I'm still playing Battlefield 4 and the game's pretty old. It's not a bad number of hours to have and I can't really complain on that front, but I can't help feeling the game has taken a step back from Battlefield 3 or Battlefield 4 in certain aspects. Sonaran also points out that gamers like modern day settings, and whether that is down to the way we can relate to the maps and locations, or whether the weaponry, gadgets and vehicles are more interesting, I'm not really sure. What I do know though is that I personally prefer Battlefield 4 or 3 as a setting over Battlefield 1. Some settings that I don't think they'll go for would be a futuristic or a crazy spin-off. Would they look into the future and go for a Battlefield 2142? I doubt it. Call of Duty games have rinsed the future scenarios to death, with multiple games using it as a setting in a row. I know Battlefield has a different community to COD, but I still feel as if DICE won't take the risk, as it's clear that the gaming community in general has had enough of the futuristic rocket boot gameplay. Will DICE make a Hardline 2? Again, I very much doubt it. They need the next game to be a hit, and after Hardline's history, I doubt they will take that risk. Finally, and I think this is the wish of a lot of Battlefield fans, could they return to the Bad Company games and produce Battlefield Bad Company 3? It would almost certainly be set in the near future during a fictional US versus somebody else war, but would stick to conventional technology for the most part. DICE have a lot of freedom with a game like this, as they wouldn't be stuck to the confines of history as they were with Battlefield 1. I feel as if it would be similar to the Final Stand DLC we saw in Battlefield 4, and although I didn't like the maps in that additional content, I did love the setting. I'll leave this one for you guys to discuss in the comments. Would you like to see Bad Company 3, or do you feel as if they want to stick to another setting? There is something really important to consider when looking at all of this. EA want money from Battlefield. It's a cash cow that will undoubtedly bring in and add a huge amount of value to their company, so making games that will sell on a biennial basis is important. Yes, I want to see a game that is fantastic and played by thousands of players for years to come, but EA want games that are easy to hype and sell, and then for the player base to buy the next game straight after. This could have an impact on what sort of content we see in the next Battlefield game, but I really hope that DICE are the ones that get the upper hand and get to create something that they both love and the community wants. For me, Bad Company 3 would be the ideal move, but I'd also be happy with a Vietnam game, or maybe a modern day game. I certainly don't want them to go into the future, and I just don't see them moving on to World War II straight away. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like down below and let me know down in the comments what you think DICE will do with their next Battlefield game. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.